I always thought there was a clear line between friendship and something more. You laugh together, you go out for drinks, you crash at each other's places, maybe even share a bed when the couch feels too small or the night too long. But there's this unspoken rule, especially between two guys, especially when one of them says he's straight, that the closeness stays platonic. That rule never really worked when it came to Liam. We met during sophomore year of college. He was a transfer student from out of state, tall and warm-eyed with this rough-around-the-edges charm that made people orbit around him. I was already out, had been since high school, and I wasn't looking for anything complicated. Liam wasn't gay. Hell, he said it so often it felt like a disclaimer. But there was something about the way he looked at me, something about the way his eyes lingered a little longer than they should have, or how he always found a reason to touch, a pat on the back that stayed a beat too long, a hug that melted into something softer when no one was looking. I ignored it. I had to. I liked having him in my life, and I didn't want to screw that up by assuming something that wasn't there. But then came that night. We'd been drinking, not blackout drunk, but enough to blur the edges a bit. It was just the two of us in his apartment. A movie playing in the background, half-watched. One of those dumb comedies we used to put on just to fill the silence. We were sitting close, our legs touching, but not by accident. I remember that part vividly, because neither of us moved away. He turned to me, suddenly quieter than before. His voice didn't match the joke the actor had just made on screen. "I've never been with a guy," he said, eyes on me. I didn't say anything, not right away. I thought maybe I misheard him. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and I knew I didn't. I've thought about it, more than I want to admit, and I trust you. I could feel my heart pounding, a rush of heat rising to my face. This wasn't just curiosity. This was loaded, intimate, a confession wrapped in vulnerability. He shifted closer, his thigh pressed firmly into mine. "Would you be my first?" he asked, barely above a whisper. That moment split something in me. A part of me wanted to say no, not out of rejection, but protection. I knew this kind of thing could unravel someone, especially if they weren't sure what they wanted, especially if I let myself want too much. But I also knew this wasn't just about sex. It was about trust, about what he was asking without really asking. And I didn't want to lie to myself. I wanted him, had wanted him for longer than I cared to admit. I nodded, slowly, cautiously, like I was stepping towards something beautiful and terrifying at the same time. His lips met mine not long after. Hesitant at first, like he was afraid of doing it wrong. But once I kissed him back, really kissed him, everything changed. His hand found the side of my face. His breath caught, and it was like we forgot how to stop. We didn't go all the way that night. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't even planned. We just stayed tangled together, skin against skin, the space between us collapsing into something I couldn't name, but felt deeper than just experimenting. In the dark, he whispered, "I don't know what this means." And I said, "That's okay." But part of me wondered if it really was. Because in the morning, I wasn't sure who he'd be. I wasn't sure if he'd remember the way he held me like he didn't want to let go, or if he'd pretend it didn't happen at all. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting lines of gold across his bare back. I watched him sleep for a few moments, not daring to move. Not because I was scared of waking him, but because I was scared of what came next. Would he pull away? Would he regret it? Or worse, would he pretend it meant nothing? When he finally stirred, he didn't bolt upright or panic. He just blinked sleepily, turned toward me, and offered a sleepy half-smile. "Hey," he murmured. That simple word, that softness in his voice, it hit me harder than I expected. "Hey," I said back, unsure of where to place my hands. I didn't know if they were still welcome on him. He didn't move away. Instead, he tucked his head into the crook of my shoulder, like we'd done this 100 times before. His fingers idly traced a pattern on my chest. Last night, he started, his voice trailing off. I held my breath. Felt really good, he finished. I didn't think it would feel like that. Like what? He thought about it for a second. Safe. Real. I don't know. I felt the pressure behind my eyes before I even realized it. The way he said it, like he was discovering something about himself he didn't even know he was looking for. And I was part of that discovery. But then he shifted again, sat up slowly, running a hand through his hair. The mood changed, subtle, but enough to make the air feel heavier. I need to figure out what this means, he said, not looking at me. Like if I'm gay or bi, or just curious? I offered, even though I hated that word in that moment. Yeah, he said, glancing at me with something like guilt. I just don't want to mess with your head. Or your heart. It was weird hearing him say that. Like he already knew he was going to. I sat up too, pulling the sheet around me more out of instinct than modesty. You didn't mess with me, Liam. Not yet. He allowed a shaky laugh. Not yet, huh? I'm just being honest. There was silence between us for a while, the kind that wasn't awkward but heavy with everything unsaid. He reached over, grabbed his hoodie off the floor, and pulled it on. So what now, he asked. I didn't know what to say, because I didn't know what I wanted from him. Or rather, I did. But I didn't want to scare him off by asking for too much, too fast. Now, I said, forcing a small smile. We get coffee. Maybe talk. Pretend we're not two guys who crossed a line last night. He smirked. You think we crossed a line? I shrugged. I think we found a new one. He nodded slowly, like he understood that in a way I couldn't fully explain. Then he reached out, briefly squeezing my hand before letting it go. I'm glad it was you, he said. If it had to be anyone, that should have been enough. That should have felt good. But part of me couldn't help wondering if that meant I was just a stepping stone. A safe place to explore. And once he figured himself out, he'd leave me behind. I try not to let that thought take root. I told myself to take it one day at a time. But feelings don't really work that way, do they? Over the next few weeks, things got complicated. Some days, he was warm, playful, affectionate, even flirty. We'd hang out like nothing had changed, but there was always this something beneath the surface. A stolen glance, a lingering touch. Nights that ended with him falling asleep on my shoulder, arms around my waist like we were something more than just friends. Other days, he was distant, quiet, like he was retreating into himself. Like the weight of what happened between us was too heavy to carry. I didn't push. I couldn't. I knew this wasn't just about me. It was about him figuring out who he was, what he wanted. But waiting in that in-between space, not quite friends, not quite lovers, started to eat away at me. And one night, I broke. It was late. One of those nights where the city outside our windows felt too loud and too far away all at once. Liam had come over again. No pretense this time, no movie, no drinks. Just the two of us sitting on my bed, not touching, not talking, until the silence got too loud for me to ignore. I can't keep doing this, I said. He looked over, his brow furrowing. Doing what? This. Us. Whatever this is. You come over, we get close, we almost cross a line again. Or we do, and then pretend we didn't. And I swallowed. I'm starting to feel like a ghost in my own life. He looked like I'd hit him. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I know. That's what makes it harder. Liam shifted on the bed, running both hands through his hair like he didn't know what to do with them. I'm just confused. Still, I didn't expect any of this. I didn't expect you. That word, you, landed hard. Like he knew I was different, but didn't know what to do with that difference. I'm not asking you to label yourself, I said. I'm not asking you to come out or change who you are. But I need to know if I'm just something you're passing through on your way to figuring it all out. Because if I am, I don't think I can keep doing this. He didn't respond right away. He stood up instead, pacing the room like he was trying to walk off the pressure in his chest. I've never felt this way about anyone before, he finally said. Not even the girls I've dated. It's not just sex. It's you. The way I feel when I'm with you. The way I miss you when I'm not. My heart leapt at that. But it wasn't joy. It was fear. Then why does it feel like you're always pulling away? Because I'm scared, he admitted, voice cracking, of what this means, of what people will say, of what I'll say to myself. I don't know how to be this version of me. I stood, crossing to him. You don't have to figure it all out right now. But I can't keep living in this in-between space. I need to know if you're willing to meet me halfway, or if I'm just going to keep loving someone who's not ready to love me back. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, really seeing me. And for a moment, I saw the answer in his eyes before he even spoke. I want to try, he whispered. I don't know how, but I want to try. For you. With you. Tears stung the back of my eyes. I hadn't expected that. Not fully. You don't have to promise anything, I said. Just don't run. Stay. Be honest. He nodded. Okay. That night, he stayed again. But it was different. No hesitation. No guilt. He held me like someone who wanted to be held. Like someone who finally gave himself permission to stop hiding. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe maybe this could be something real. Not just a first, but the start of something neither of us had words for yet. The days that followed felt like we were balancing on a high wire. No net, no guide, just raw honesty and hope. Liam was trying. That much was clear. He started texting me more during the day. Stupid memes. Inside jokes. Questions about how I was doing, but not the kind you ask just to be polite. The kind that mean I'm thinking about you. He held my hand once in public. It was small, quick, barely a brush of fingers as we walked down a quiet street after grabbing coffee. But it happened, and when I looked at him, startled, he didn't pull away. I wanted to see what it felt like, he said softly. And he gave me this crooked smile. It felt right. I smiled back, trying not to let my heart get ahead of reality. Because the truth was, as much as I wanted to believe in this version of him, the one who kissed me in private and touched me in daylight, I knew we were still in the gray. Still figuring out who we were to each other. One night, about a month after that first time, we were lying in bed again. The lights were off, the window cracked open, and the air smelled like rain. I told my sister, Liam said, voice low and unsure. I turned to him. Told her what? That I'm seeing someone. That it's a guy. My chest tightened. I tried to play it cool. What did she say? She asked if it was you. That made me laugh. Seriously? Yeah. Apparently, I talk about you more than I realize. What did you tell her? That I don't know what this is, but that it feels important. That you feel important. I couldn't breathe for a second. Not because I was shocked, but because I've been holding so much in, waiting for this moment. Waiting for him to choose me, even if he couldn't say the word boyfriend yet. Thank you, I whispered. He reached for my hand under the blanket, lacing our fingers together. I'm scared as hell, you know. I know, but I'm not running anymore. And he didn't. He stayed. But staying didn't mean things were easy. There were moments when I could still see the fear in him. When he'd flinch at someone looking too long in a restaurant, or go silent after a kiss in a parked car. When I could tell he was battling the voice in his head that told him this was wrong, even if every part of him wanted it to be right. I tried to be patient. I reminded myself this wasn't a race, that people come to themselves in their own time. But some nights, the weight of waiting got too heavy. I remember one in particular, a party, a mutual friend's birthday. The apartment was packed. Music, drinks, laughter, the whole deal. Liam was with me, but not with me. He drifted through the room like a ghost, avoiding eye contact when people asked if we were there together. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was new, that he wasn't ready. But when I saw him talking to a girl from one of his classes, laughing too loudly, leaning in too close, something in me cracked. I left without saying goodbye. I walked for almost an hour, around the city, through the chill of spring air. I didn't cry, not yet. I was too angry. At myself. At him. At this situation I kept hoping would get easier. When I got home, he was already there, sitting on my steps, hoodie soaked from the drizzle. I'm sorry, he said before I even reached him. I didn't mean to make you feel invisible. I didn't say anything. Just unlocked the door and let us in. Once we were inside, he reached for me, and this time I didn't pull away. I get scared, he said, and sometimes I try to act normal. Like if I can just act straight enough for one night, the fear will go away. And does it? No, his voice broke. Because normal doesn't feel like me anymore. You feel like me. That was the first time I cried in front of him. Not because I was hurt, but because I finally believed he meant it. That night was a turning point. Not because everything suddenly became perfect, it didn't. But because Liam stopped pretending. He stopped pretending around me. And more importantly, he stopped pretending to himself. He still had moments of doubt, of hesitation. But the difference was, now he let me in. Now he talked to me through them instead of pushing me away. We started doing normal couple things in our own quiet way. Coffee dates where his knee would press against mine under the table. Late night drives where he'd reach for my hand at a red light. Weekend mornings spent in bed, tangled up in limbs and soft conversation. There was no big coming out post on Instagram. No rainbow flags, or announcements. Just us. Real. Gradual. Unfolding in the small moments. One afternoon, we were lying on the grass in the park, our heads close, watching clouds drift by. The sun was warm on our faces, and everything felt soft, the kind of peace that makes you forget the world has ever been cruel. "I think I'm bisexual," he said, out of nowhere. I looked over at him, startled by the quiet certainty in his voice. "I've been reading about it, listening to podcasts, trying to understand myself without the fear getting in the way. And yeah, I think that's what fits." I smiled, touched his hand gently. "That's huge, Liam." He nodded. "It feels like breathing for the first time." Later, he added, "I told my mom to—" I froze. "What did she say?" "She cried," he said with a soft laugh. "Not because she was upset. She said she was proud of me for being honest. Said she always kind of knew. Moms, right?" I let out the breath I didn't realize I was holding. I reached for him, pulling him into me, and for the first time, I let myself imagine a real future, one where we weren't hiding, one where we could live, love, and just be without second-guessing it all the time. But of course, life isn't always a straight line. There were still setbacks. One night, we were out with a group of his old friends. Most of them guys, most of them the kind who threw around the word bro like it was currency. Liam didn't hold my hand that night, barely looked at me. When someone made a casually homophobic joke, he laughed, not because it was funny, but because he didn't know how not to. On the walk home, I said nothing. I couldn't. I was too tired. But once we got inside, he turned to me, guilt all over his face. "I messed up." I nodded. I didn't know how to handle it. I froze. And I hate that I laughed. "It's not about the joke," I said. "It's about how it felt to see you disappear." He crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped his arms around me. "I'm trying. I swear I am. But sometimes I still fall back into who I used to be, the version of me that felt safer." I leaned into him. "Then just promise me you'll come back. Every time. I promise." And he did. Every time he faltered, he came back. And slowly, the faltering happened less and less. The fear faded, replaced with something steadier, something rooted in truth. We started traveling together, small weekend trips at first, then longer ones. In other cities, we could be anyone. We could hold hands without worry. We could share a kiss on a sidewalk and not think twice. And somewhere along the way, we stopped referring to each other as just friends. We didn't need to explain anymore. Because we weren't hiding. Not from the world. Not from each other. Not even from ourselves. It was almost a year after that first night, the night Liam whispered, "Would you be my first?" when I realized I didn't have to wait for the other shoe to drop anymore. I wasn't holding my breath. I wasn't preparing myself for him to walk away. Because he wasn't going anywhere. We were lying on the couch, his legs tangled with mine, the soft hum of a vinyl record spinning in the background. His head rested on my chest, and I was tracing lazy circles on his back, something I did without thinking now. He looked up at me, eyes soft. "Do you remember that night?" I didn't have to ask which one. "Of course." "I was so scared," he said. "Scared you'd say no. Scared I'd ruin everything. Scared of what it would mean if I liked it. And now," he smiled, this quiet kind of smile that only ever showed up when he was fully relaxed, when he felt safe. "Now I know it didn't ruin anything. It started everything." I kissed his forehead, holding him a little tighter. He continued, "I think part of me always knew, even back in high school. But I shoved it down so hard I couldn't even recognize it. And then you came along and made it impossible to ignore." I blinked back the burn in my eyes. I didn't want to cry, not because I wasn't moved, but because this moment wasn't about sadness. It was about healing, and it had taken him so long to get here. "I'm proud of you," I said. "Not just because you're with me, but because you did the work. You faced the fear." He leaned up and kissed me. Slow, sure, no hesitation. "I love you," he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And I believed him, not just because of the words, but because of everything it took for him to say them. "I love you too," I whispered. That night, we made love, and I used that word carefully. Because yes, we'd been physical before. We'd touched and kissed and explored all the ways two people can share a bed. But this was different. This wasn't first-time curiosity or nervous discovery. This was choosing each other, fully, fearlessly. Afterward, we lay there, limbs tangled, hearts beating in sync. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was full of understanding, of peace. Liam rested his head against my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for being patient, for staying when you didn't have to. I never wanted to be anywhere else." And it was true, because what started as a question, a trembling moment of "I've never done this before," had turned into something whole, something real. He wasn't just experimenting, and I wasn't just a first. We were something neither of us had known how to ask for when we met. But somehow, through all the doubt and hesitation, we found it anyway. We found us.